If you don't understand variables, coding will always feel confusing. But don't worry, I'll explain it so simply that you will never forget. Hi, I'm Harshita and I teach coding in simplest way for beginners. Let's get into the video.
Right. So we will start with what is a variable. So variable is simply a container that can store data inside it. Just like in real life, you have a box of container and your mom says store sugar inside it, right? So you will store sugar inside it and label that container as sugar, correct? And whenever your mom says to, take sugar from the box or you need to put sugar into something, what you will do, you will, you know, take the sugar out from this box. You will come here, you will see this is the box of sugar, you will, use that sugar out of this box, right? In programming, for the same thing, we use variables that can hold data, that can store information. Okay, so the basic syntax of variables is something like name. If I want to store the user's name, for example, I want to store my name, so I can write name Harshita, right? If I want to store age of the person, for example, this 22, here what we have done, we have a variable named as name, and again we have another variable age. Inside this name we have Harshita stored inside it. For example, think of it like in memory you have created a container name and inside it you have stored Harshita. In the same way, in memory you have created another container, you have named it as age and you have stored 22 inside it, right? So here name is a variable that stores text and age is a variable that can store a number, right? So let me break it down for you. Let's understand this line. Name equals to Harshita. So what is it? Name is variable here. Name is variable here, right? And you see this equals to, this is something known as assignment operators that we will understand in detail in upcoming videos. Okay, for now just understand this is something known as assignment operator, and this Harshita, it is the value that is stored inside the variable, that is a value. Okay, so we are basically saying store Harshita inside name. That is what we are basically saying. Okay, so if we want to print this variable, what do? We will just write something known as print and inside it we will put name. So what is inside name now? Inside name it is storing Harshita, right? So it will print Harshita on screen. Let's understand this in PyCharm. Okay, let me open PyCharm here. So what we will do over here, we will create a variable name and inside this variable name I will store a text which is Harshita. I'll create another variable age and inside it I will store something, a number, not in double quotes, 25, like this. Now if I have to print it, print name like this, and then I can print age. So I would recommend you to watch the full video, okay, as at the end of the video we will be having some exercise which is important for you. Okay, you see the current file we have selected as this. Let me choose current file. Now let's run this. You see it has given Harshita and 25, right? When we print it, Python shows the stored value, right? Now if I want to change the value, now after this print name I have done something which is age equals to 23. Now let's run this. You see now age is 23, right? Variables can change. That is why they are known as variables, because we can change them. Okay, so the types of value that you can store inside a variable are numbers. You can store like this. You can store text. You can also store something known as float, decimal points. For example, percentage equals to 90.5. Inside the variables you can also store decimal point numbers, which are known as float. You can also store something like, is Harshita a student? Is student equals to false? True or false? Right? Harshita is not a student, so I have written false over here. Alright. Now let's talk about how to name the variable properly. So this is a very important rule that we need to understand, that how to name the variable properly. Okay, so let's go to our whiteboard and let's see. So we will understand something called as naming conventions. So what are naming conventions? So naming conventions are very useful thing that can tell us how to name a variable properly, and you always have to name the variable properly because that is something you have to use it along your whole program, along your whole code, right? So the first rule says that must start with letter or underscore. Must start with letter or underscore. So variable name should always start with letter or underscore. Example, name. This is a variable that has the value Harshita inside it. Second, age. For example, this, or like underscore age. This is the correct, way of storing the variable. Now, for example, I created a variable, for example, one name like this, and I have put inside it something called as, for example, Ria. Okay, so this is a wrong way. Now let me show you why this is the wrong way. If you will write something like this in PyCharm, let's go here. Let's create a variable one name equals to Ria. Now what is it showing? If I run this, you see it gave me the syntax error, right? Invalid decimal literal, because this is a wrong way of naming the variable. Instead of one, now if you will put here underscore, then that will be right. And if you will run it, no error, error is gone, right? So variable name must start with letter or underscore. Okay, now let's understand the second rule. What is the second rule? We need to understand the second rule, which says no spaces. For example, you are storing the person's first name or last name. So what do you do in that case? You can write something like, first, last name, like this, with spaces in between. So that is wrong. For example, you are writing username, user space name, right? That is also wrong. That is also wrong. If we go into PyCharm and we put spaces, for example, here, user space name equals to Harshita. So you see, it's giving me the error. Now, instead of the space, I just combine them together. Username. No error. Error is gone. Or if I actually want the space, I can put underscore. User underscore name equals to Harshita. That can work. You can put underscore instead of spaces. Okay. So that is the second rule that we understood. Right? So we have understood the second, case. Now we will understand the third thing, which is case sensitive. Now, if you have created a variable with small n name like this, and then you have again in your program created something like this. So it will treat the capital N name as the new variable. These two will be treated as different, not same. Okay, it will create first variable as name in the memory, second it will create with capital N name Ria in the memory. So these will be two variables different, they will be treated as a different variable. Okay. Okay, so that was the naming conventions. The first one is must start with underscore or the letter. Second one was no spaces in between the variable names. The third one is it is case sensitive, right? And what is a best practice? Best practice of naming the variable name is always use meaningful names. Okay, always use meaningful names. For example, you have created x equals to 10. Nobody knows what x it is, what is its purpose, why you have created this, right? But if you create a variable age equals to 10, everybody will able to understand that this variable is storing the person's age. Okay, perfect. These are some exercises that I want you to practice on. Okay, so keep
practicing, keep coding. If you understand variables, you are already one step ahead. Subscribe and I'll teach you how to take input from the users in the next video. If you have any suggestions, if you want to learn something new, or if you want to understand, or if you want to know how to install PyCharms in your system, then comment I want to install PyCharm on my system and I'll create a video step by step on how to install PyCharms into your system. Alright, so I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Keep coding, keep practicing. Till then, bye bye. We'll see you in the next one.